Welcome back to the Social Seller Podcast with Conor Paulsen, where we interview the world's highest quality communicators, professionals, business owners, creatives, and everything in between. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a high quality communicator, there's a good chance you're living a lot happier life, but you're also bringing those opportunities into your life almost like a magnet. My guarantee is that on this show, we only interview people that I, one, look up to, and two, that I know are going to continue to kill the game for years to come, and I want to make sure they're on your radar. But what I've learned is by asking the best questions, we get the best responses, and that's what the highest quality communicators, our social sellers, are all about. Let's hop inside to the Social Seller Podcast.
Crown of gold in the digital mold. I'm into physical deep fake, and they're making me break. Big approved like the Brooklyn Big Three. Kyrie, James, and Slim Reaper, KD, baby. Yo, we gonna get that shit. Ripping champagne, sipping it.
Whoa. Welcome back to the Social Seller. What kind of intro is that, Chris? What the hell did you just show us?
That is an NFT.
A non-fungible token. I've seen headlines about it. Why the hell are all these young kids talking about this? And why would we even create an episode of the Social Seller on this?
And that's what we'll get into, but it basically comes down to the ability to get attention and build community. And that is what brands are built off of, and the ability to create something that people want.
Absolutely. And I love that you say community because that is what I'm realizing watching this and having experience. It showed me that these little things, like playing a lot of video games growing up as a kid, and I know for both of us, that's in still playing today, is a big part of, like, I couldn't relate anything to it, and I didn't even realize I was really in a community as a kid doing those things. Even though I had some friendships, it's like this has taken it to a whole new adult level, and there's a community, and each community is very different in why you're a part of a community. And I don't know, it's very interesting. It's got a feeling like you're a little bit of a venture capitalist. You are, you feel like you define innovation, or not defining innovation, but you get to be, it feels like you're maybe a small segment of the future. How did you feel, and why did you ever start looking into this?
I think that's why NFTs are taking off as much as they are, and why they're not going to be a fad. And how, like, if we go back to the basics of an NFT really being something that you can prove ownership of and prove authenticity of. So, you know, collectibles already exist, and then there's grading companies for playing cards and for different types of collectibles that, like, guarantee the authenticity. Somebody looks at it and says, like, yes, that is the real thing. So being able to take advantage of blockchain and crypto is just taking out the person having to authenticate somebody and just knowing that the ownership is there. And so that's kind of like the tech behind the why it makes sense, because it makes it so, you know, whatever collectible or item you're buying, there doesn't have to be a third party involved to authenticate it. You know, it is what it is, and you can prove that you own it. That's the other component to it. So a lot of the projects in NFTs right now are what's called profile picture projects. So they'll call them PFPs, and that's where you can kind of change your profile picture. So, you know, Steph Curry bought something called a Bored Ape, and on Twitter, if you look him up, I'll go ahead and share my screen really quick. You can see that he made this his profile picture on Twitter.
He did that like 2-3 months ago, right? Because I remember that literally brought back a lot of hype just for myself, like an internal excitement. Because you and me were fortunate to get into a project in May of this year, in 2021, which in a lot of ways seems like that was, I didn't really get what I was getting into. I trusted you, and I understood kind of the influence and community behind it. This is still very, very new, right? And Chris, when you helped me understand it, now it's been, you know, whatever, 7-8 months, even though NFTs really started in 2017, it seems like this year is where a lot of this momentum and the compounding effect is kind of taking hold. And it's kind of the next phase from what I'm understanding of crypto, right? Cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all the different altcoins. And now these are things that you can actually buy online, right? And you're saying this, I know the thing that didn't make sense for me early on was like, why do they keep talking about smart contracts? What do they mean, the blockchain, right? And I know what you're explaining would not have made sense to me at the beginning. When you explain Web 1.0, could you give me that analogy really quick? Because that helped me a ton, just understanding that this is the future and kind of understanding where we're at in this.
Yeah. So with NFTs really being, and blockchain really being Web 3.0, if you think about Web 1.0 really being, email and essentially search. So Yahoo, Google, when it came out, AOL, the different search engines that existed early on back in the late 90s was what Web 1.0 was. It was giving access to people information on the internet. So that was really search and email. Then kind of what Web 2.0 was now social media. So now you have user generated content on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram that is being consumed by another user on a centralized platform like Facebook, Google, YouTube, Twitter. So that is what Web 2.0 is essentially, was that communication aspect and really the internet building out more and more. So Web 3.0 is essentially the decentralization of that aspect. So taking out the middlemen in a lot of scenarios, which is why it makes as much sense as it does. And I think as we talk a little bit more, people will start to see kind of the utility of it. But taking out the middlemen that are always kind of scraping off money and making it so ownership isn't in complete control of creators is kind of the punchline of why NFTs make a lot of sense and why more and more companies will be able to see it. And then also the ability for companies to make ongoing money off of third-party transactions. So right now, if you go and sell a Louis Vuitton bag on the secondary market, Louis Vuitton isn't going to make any money off of that. NFTs would make it possible that they could tie in a 10% royalty. So now every time that bag is resold, they make money off of that transaction, which is why it'll be adopted by mainstream business and communities and technology, because the money flows there. And whenever the money flows somewhere and it makes sense, it is usually just a matter of time.
Yes, I love it. And I want to mention here to condense that. It's so exciting because this is almost like anyone listening, Chris, we're having a conversation in 1990 talking about this thing called the internet. And, that might come out in 92, 93. And we kind of understand it a little bit more than most people. Now, 99% of people are saying that's a fad. No way it's going to be around. But what was Web 1.0? It was very focused on like asking questions. Can I ask Google? Can I ask ask.com, right? And get a response. It was this digital dictionary and it was crazy. Now, when we were excited and started to finally adopt Web 1.0, we didn't see what 2.0 was in the early to mid 2000s, right? Where there's this thing, what if we connected people from around the world that all had internet on Facebook and Twitter and different social media platforms? We're getting to this next progression. And this one is very exciting because for you and me, as business partners in a company called Uptown Creation, we get excited about the future. When we've taken assessments in the past, and I forced you to probably take a lot more than you've ever wanted to, usually we both lean towards something in the like innovation or futuristic side of things. So there's also drawbacks to it. There's reasons why we have certain people around us to let these things happen. But this is what we focus a lot of our energy and I would just say excitement. That's what all of it is out of, is this is just feels like it is the future. And once you get a little bit of an experience, I started to realize that, oh my gosh, this thing called Web 3.0, and where I don't have to put my name and information in. And I see how when I'm buying things online, even if I'm buying something on Amazon down the road, like all of it is going to be more secure and more connected and definite than ever before, taking out middle people, processing fees, and all these, anyone collecting on my simple purchase. That's what a lot of consumers, we forget. But making it definite and not having to have that information and always having to plug it in. Now, that's just one small aspect of this. And we wanted
and
to
NFTs
create
are still just the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, and what
I love that
Web
exactly.
3.0 will be. And so when people talk about smart contracts, that's a hard thing to conceptualize, but pretty much anything can be a contract. Any like agreement between two sides or cause and effect relationship can be written into a contract. And that's really what the limitations are, which shows kind of how limitless everything is. I think going into kind of the things that got me thinking more real world and bought into the concept of NFTs were, first and foremost, like the name NFT will probably change just because it's not the most easy to understand thing. Just like the internet was originally called the World Wide Web, and people would talk about the World Wide Web, which is something that you don't hear anymore at all. And so NFTs will probably follow that same pathway. But then to go into like a couple examples of what really made me see the potential and get bought into why NFTs make a lot of sense are, first and foremost, the concept of being able to build communities and track them very effectively and reward those people. So I'll give an example of, let's say that, so Mark Cuban's already talked about making Dallas Mavs tickets NFTs potentially. So let's say that, you know, if you're a season ticket holder, you get an NFT along with that. And now every time you go to the game, you scan that NFT to get in, to kind of show that you have been at that game. Let's say that, you know, one of the games in the season, they're down by 20 points in the fourth quarter, but they end up making a comeback. So most people have left the arena already, but there's the select few people there that get to see that comeback and that win. You know, maybe Mark Cuban goes back and says, those people get a free beer for all the rest of the season games. And you can implement that into a smart contract on the blockchain with all the people that you already know are season ticket holders, and do that with the click of a button, essentially. So you're able to interact more and reward your communities and the people that matter the most through this type of technology. So that was the one example that really got me thinking. The other example of that I already touched on it, which was royalties. If the money flows that way, it makes sense. So if companies are able to tie royalties to a secondary transaction or a transaction on the secondary market, I mean, it's more money in big companies' pockets. So of course they're going to go in that direction.
I love it. And it sounds simple, and I didn't even get it through college. But if you follow where the money is going and you follow where it's trickling, you start to get into these kind of spaces. And that's what starts to make a lot of this sense. And the people that, I guess I also want to say that 9 out of 10 projects currently that we're calling NFTs, you know, are most likely going to fail. So in no way would we say to like get into it. What I experienced, and I know a lot of what we've learned together, and the friends and people that have been a part of it for the, I don't know, majority of this year, it's kind of keeping an eye on 2 to 4 or 5 projects. It's not trying to get into everything. And that was the mistake I made early on, because you run out of money quick. And it's kind of really getting in with a community and almost feeling out the community is what I've realized now. You know, I've made a lot of mistakes, costly mistakes. And anyone will tell you that, you know, getting into this territory, you're going to, but you're also going to see some cool wins, and you're going to get this excitement. Like, I kid you not, it's close to that feeling of Christmas morning as a kid when you still believe Santa was real. And for anyone that does, he is still real. I don't want to break anything, right? Would you agree, Chris? Isn't it a little bit like that? Like with some of the excitement, because you feel like you are an early adopter and you see that you might be in the first few hundred of this project, whether it's from a notable name like Gary Vaynerchuk or Tom Bilyeu, or those are business-minded people. And I know I've taken a lot of my investments in the direction of like, I want them to already have a community. And I also filter the individual by like, I believe they're going to be doing this for some time and they're authentic, right? They've been doing this for some time and they've kept consistency. I know you followed Gary very, very closely for some time, and our boy Yassine in Germany, shout out, brother. It was only time we've talked about creating an interview, or we didn't even know. This isn't as much an interview of just like, we have a lot of friends that we're excited, and this is a video and almost a call to anyone that's been supporting the channel, whether it's any aspect of the business. We're not here to sell or anything. That's not us. We're just here to share it with anyone else that likes innovation, and maybe give you a couple pointers by the end of this conversation on condensing what Chris and I have kind of gotten, and maybe save you some mistakes, because I can tell you the mistakes in these things can be very costly, right? I mean, and just understanding like gas fees, and do you mint or do you buy in the secondary market? Are you buying from the real person? Because there are a lot of scams, but if you do this right, it isn't scary. It gets very fun, and you get to be a part of something in ways that I've just never seen the world interact. I like it as a business owner and on the B2B side. Chris, what did you start today's interview on? Did I hear Biggie? And those were lyrics that I've never heard in any Biggie song. And I don't think even the biggest Biggie fan in the world does not know those lyrics. Is that true?
Yeah. And so that was artificial intelligence creating a song based on the way, and true artificial intelligence. I know I tell you all the time when people claim AI that it's probably not AI, because AI takes a lot of computing power, and most people don't have true AI and neural networks and stuff. But when you're able to use that technology, you're able to create some pretty crazy things by not just taking words that somebody said and reorganizing them, but literally creating new words spoken the exact same way by a person, because you're hitting it at the exact decibels that person would. And that's when AI gets really crazy. But so I think the two things that we could go over, and what I'll do, I'll play that one more time, and then I want to go into the different types of NFTs, go into a couple of resources that really helped me early on and saved me a lot of time having to look into stuff, as well as the best places to stay up to date with projects, NFTs, regardless of whether you're trying to put any money down or anything, because you can watch from afar and still learn a lot of the same things. So
and
let me go ahead and
real quick, is that if we
Crown of gold in a digital mold, a metaphysical deep fake, and making me break. Big approved like the Brooklyn Big Three, Kyrie, James, and Slim Reaper, KD, baby, yo, we gonna get that shit, ripping champagne, sipping it.
Sorry that Biggie cut you off.
No, Biggie, it can always cut me off. Now, not only is it sick, and how the hell is it this good? What the hell is the future gonna look like, man? Like in okay, context, why are we showing you this? This is a form of an NFT in a project called Deadhead. This is something that it sounds like could be coming out in the future. You can learn a little bit about this, but this is just an idea of one aspect, right? I think one common confusion is hearing, and I know this was confusing for me, is over the last 6 to 12 months when I first started hearing about NFTs, it was always in regards to like pictures. You're buying digital things, and from what I saw online, it looked like you were hanging them online. So okay, like an electronic picture, right? Oh, you own Michael Jordan's iconic dunk in this game 7, or like what, game 5, I don't know. And it's that, and it's almost funny because if that's, I think, a funny mirror that gets to sit behind kind of the communities right now that are growing and what's happening, because that is what's easy to joke at. Like, wait, why the hell is all this money? Why would Steph Curry change his profile picture?
And the example that made the like ownership resonate for me is the common thing that people will say is, you know, can't I just screenshot that picture and make it my profile picture instead of paying, you know, a couple $100,000 to get that? And, you know, you can, just the same way that you can go and stand in front of a Lamborghini or find somebody that you know that has a Lamborghini and sit in it and take a picture of it. But that doesn't mean that you own the Lamborghini, right? You're able to kind of show off as if you did, but the ownership isn't there. And that's the whole point of blockchain, NFTs, Web3, is that the ownership is very, very trackable. So to go on to kind of like the different types of projects, which I think will help people out in hearing, is so you have kind of your traditional art projects where an artist is creating something digitally, and that's going to be art that is on the internet. Then you have more collectible type projects where, you know, you're building up a community around something, and they have what's called a roadmap, which is kind of them telling you what they're going to be doing and what utility or access they're giving out. And then you have projects that are more traditional forms of investment, especially with musicians and things like that, that we can touch on. So here, I wanted to share my screen and go over this Tom Sachs rocket factory. So this falls more into the art category. And so basically what you're able to do is there's three pieces of this rocket. There's a tail, a body, and then a nose cone. And so you can buy any variations of these three things, put them together and combine them. And then what Tom Sachs will do is create a physical rocket that looks like that, launch it off in a city, and then recover it, mail it to you, and send you the video along with it. So you kind of get that whole experience of building something digitally, watching somebody who's a renowned artist go and create that piece of art, do something with it, and then ship you the art itself that you get to keep along with the digital NFT. Then a project that is more traditional in the collectability side of things and the utility side is Bored Ape Yacht Club, which is probably the project of 2021 that's taken off the most. You can see that the floor price right now is just under 35 Ethereum, which is basically $140,000 at the current Ethereum price. And originally these went for 0.08 Ethereum. So just look at that return on investment from 0.08 Ethereum, which is a couple $100, to over $140,000 each for these NFTs. But since they've had the success that they've had, now it was a joke at first about creating a yacht club, but now that they have the funding, that's actually going to be something that happens. You know, they're going to build a yacht club in Miami that you'll only have access to if you own one of these Bored Apes. And then they're going to do that at different parts of the world to be able to provide value to the people that are the holders of an NFT. So now you have this community, you have this aspect of building something with other people that you're then able to gain something with and gain something from. And that is what most of the NFT projects right now are, is kind of this collectability, community building, utility access type play. And Connor's going and showing what the roadmap looks like.
Yeah, and I, this computer can't handle it like yours does with the big gaming tower. Just wanted to give an idea because I think it's interesting, and this is simply a roadmap. Like this is what helped me better understand and also pique curiosity for certain people, and like, why would I even want to spend this kind of money on something, even if it's $150 to get into an NFT, let alone why are people spending so much? To the people that feel like there might be FOMO. And then, you know, I also want to kind of discuss what conversation last week with a good friend that runs a hedge fund, right? His job is to keep track of wealthy people's money and to make strong, confident, and minimize risk. And so getting his take too on the flip side, and he's like, oh, professionally, absolutely not. But personally, there's a ton of opportunity, but making sure you're in it for the right reasons and don't get into it if you know that that's not also money that could be lost, right? And I guess I just wanted to make sure I made that kind of mention. But Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? One of the most successful and will go down is an OG Ethereum NFT blue chip for forever, right? Just because of the hype it's gotten up to this point. All right, well, and see, they purposely don't give out a ton, right? So as you're a part of these communities, you can start to understand more of what these things mean, right? So it's almost like a treasure chest or a treasure like what map, and you're going through this. These could be years out. They're purposely not, you know, they haven't put a timeline to this. Maybe if you join the community. Now, Chris, what are the top 2 or 3 places that you go to learn stuff? I mean, for me, it was personally, it started with YouTube because I just had to like listen to it for a few days and it didn't make sense. A lot of jargon. And then come to find out, oh shit, like things are just changing all the time. So you almost have to keep kind of updated. But once you do it a little bit, you start to kind of get hooked, right?
Yeah. And so I can go into that. Before I go into kind of the resources and the places to learn, the final example and kind of the second part of NFTs, which hasn't even really been that much of a thing yet, is so Tory Lanez sold 1 million copies of a single dollar NFT album, and that sold out in 57 seconds. So he sold 1 million copies of this album that was as an NFT for $1. And that might seem kind of crazy, but now when you think about how I was talking about royalties in the future, or in the earlier in the episode, he got 1 million of these things into 1 million people's hands. And there's probably some people that hold multiples, so not truly 1 million people's hands. But now on the secondary market, you know, maybe the next time those sell, it'll be $20. And maybe the next time they sell, it'll be $500. And, you know, eventually there might be a point where these things are selling for $1,000 to $10,000 each. And if he's taking, you know, a 10% royalty off of each of those sales, that's a ton of money that you're able to loop in. And so now, not to make it sound like a cash grab, because that's what a lot of these projects are at this point, is people just trying to make a quick buck or make quick money and not be on the innovative side. But the innovative side of that is, now imagine that you are a fan of an artist that's up and coming and they're about to release their first album. And, you know, only you and 20,000 people really even know who they are. Instead of having to go to a studio to raise money and everything, they'd be able to go to their fan base and say, hey, you believe in me, so I want to give you guys 20% of my lifetime earnings for perpetuity. And here's my first album. So now, not only are you buying their first album, you're also getting on the back end this utility of making royalties that the artist is going to make. So now if that artist becomes a big time deal, yeah, they have to share 20% of that money, but that's nothing compared to signing on a record label. When you sign on a record label, that might be reversed, where the label's taking 80% of the money and you're taking home 20% as the artist. So flipping those roles is huge, but also being able to now work for your community and work for the people that believe in you. And those people become even bigger believers and bigger supporters because now they're invested in some way. So think about what human behavior looks like when somebody has a vested interest now in being able to share something that they already loved. And so, again, this is just the tip of the iceberg, but I think that's an important example to also bring in from kind of an investment, fundraising type space as well. So I'll transition into the top places that I go to learn about things. And so I'll start with kind of the resources online, and then I'll go into how you can learn using social media. So there's 3 YouTube channels that I follow pretty heavily. So this Elio Trades Crypto is a pretty good one for just getting awareness and breakdowns of the market overall. Then my favorite one that I listen to is called Lad City. And so they have something called NFT Live, which is basically a news show that is on for an hour twice a week. And they'll do an interview of the founder of a project, and then they'll give you the news update of what's happened in the last couple days since their last episode. And so this is probably where I get most of my information, because it's still pretty small and a small community. The information that they share is really, really high quality, and not that many people know about it yet. And then the final one is this Giancarlo Buys Tokens. And so he does really good videos that are 10 to 15 minutes that he's able to explain kind of the hard topics that you might not conceptually understand at all when you first start. Just like, why you might want to use a hardware wallet to store your NFTs, which is something, once you learn more about NFTs, that comes up in the conversation. So yeah, those 3 YouTube channels.
I'm glad you say that. Yeah, I like Lad City a lot. I did not know the first one, the Elliot. So I will definitely watch. I saw that was on the Uptown YouTube account for them, and that must have meant you were watching some. But yeah, Giancarlo, or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. I like his stuff because he comes from a traditional trading background, right? And he stopped everything like a year ago to really focus on building out content for this. And I think when we started following him here a few months ago, his account was at like 2,000 subs or something. So mad props. I'm curious. Hopefully some NFT people end up watching one of these, or someone has interest. So we can do some interviews with them too, because that'd be fun. But yeah, Chris, what do you think makes the most logical sense to show them next?
Yeah, I think the thing that we can kind of wrap up with is like how you learn about the communities and interact with those communities. So first and foremost, like if you're looking at any NFTs, I think they can be broken down into 3 different components. So you have the founders and the people behind the project. Just like any startup or any type of investment, you have the people behind the project, or the jockey riding the horse. You have the decision makers, and that matters a lot for projects that you're looking into. But let's say now you have people that you're really behind. Now the project itself, what are they promising to do? Is this just going to be a profile picture, or are they trying to make an animated series with it? Are they trying to make a yacht club? Are they doing a conference? Are they doing a music festival? What is the other utility or access that you get by buying something? And do you believe that the person running it can actually deliver on that? Just like any startup, again, they're telling you what they want to accomplish, but they don't always accomplish that. Then the third component and final component really is the community behind it. And that can be one of the things that takes a little bit more time to really understand and get a feel for by really interacting with it. And so the place where the community hangs out is Discord. So Discord is typically like a chat room type style communication method that was usually used for gamers, but the NFT space has really, really adopted it as the primary space to build communities out. So what you'll do when you get into a project is you'll join the Discord server, and then there'll be a bunch of different channels that you can kind of go through. So for example, with Deadheads, you'll see on the left-hand side here, the information, the roadmap, The announcement channel will always be kind of where the newest updates are. You can see it a couple hours ago, they provided an update. Then there'll always be kind of this general chat room where people talk about, everything from their day to other projects that they're involved in, to the business that they're doing, and everything in between. And it's really just anything that you'd expect out of a conversation between people. So based on the activity in a Discord, you can judge a lot about a project and gain a lot of insight into that. And then the final space, which is the probably gold standard for projects and crypto communication and NFT communication, is Twitter. And so Twitter is by far the platform where majority of the people that are interested in having a discussion about NFTs or having a discussion about any project are going to hang out. So just to recap that, you have your founding team, you have the roadmap or the promise and access and utility that somebody's trying to provide with an NFT. And then you have the community that's behind it and how they feel about it. And those are going to be the three factors that inevitably determine success and determine whether an investment makes sense. And you're able to judge those things usually through joining their Discord channel and interacting, as well as following somebody on Twitter and seeing the discussion that's happening there. So using YouTube really to set the stage, learn the things that you don't know, and then being able to put that into action using Discord and Twitter. And then the final thing that I guess I didn't even mention is, so the place that 99.9% of transactions happen after a project's been sold out is on this thing called OpenSea, which you may or may not have ever heard of, but they are the single player in secondary market and secondary transactions of NFTs. So you can go to the stats area and you can really see the projects that are moving. You can see how many owners, how many assets, the floor price on these projects, the 24 and 7-day change and volume. So you can get kind of some of those metrics at a glance. That'll also give you a good place to start. And, you see a project like Cool Cats. Now you might click into Cool Cats here, then you'll go down and maybe look at the Cool Cats Twitter by going to Twitter. And then usually on the Twitter, they'll have a link to their Discord that then you can go and join the Discord. And just kind of clicking around is going to be the way to get your feet wet in the world of NFTs.
I love that. And I have to completely agree. Great communicator. The next one, for any friends that are watching this that might have dabbled with NFTs or have been hitting me up, and I love the conversations and keeping the dialogue. One that I like is icy.tools. So this is a paid service. I think it's like 0.03 ETH, and that could always be changing. They have discounted rates too. But this is where you connect your wallet and you can actually start to just look in and get a better idea in a 7-day forecast. If you want, you can zoom in, but get a better idea on where are people spending. Once you start to get a better idea, and this ideally keeps you from hopefully making any drastic mistakes. And so hopefully if you have any interest or get any value from today's video, we wanted one resource that Chris and I can kind of send people to give that early feedback, because we have friends that are creatives, that are digital artists that I haven't talked to for a while, that I've seen, our mild conversations about NFTs. I purposely keep it kind of quiet because I think sometimes I was getting a little excited and I don't want it to take away from credibility. But this is an outlet where we can have some of these conversations. So please drop any questions below. What projects are you in? Are you in a project yet? If not, do you have your eyes on any? And let's start a conversation. Maybe down the road, we have an Uptown Discord just to kind of share some insight.
Yeah,
Chris, any last words?
I'm excited to see what other projects people are in, or if they got any value from any of the resources that we talked about that then they went and checked out and were able to kind of start getting their feet wet.
Absolutely. And in the next one, we can talk about a couple of the projects that we've kind of kept an eye on. Never giving financial advice, but projects that excite us and seem novel, and we've defined as communities that we really like over the long haul. And discussing also what this crypto or blockchain winter thing is that everyone talks about, and is it even the right time to get in? And if so, what do you kind of need to know right now to maybe try to maximize it? Because no one can time the market, and that's something we do now. So thanks,
Yeah.
Chris.
I'm excited for the next chat. Peace.